Hey guys, I'm making this video to go over some basic music stuff as well as to talk about what we can be practicing right now and how to practice it so that hopefully when we get together and are able to practice our music together, we are all relatively on the same page, and hopefully that will be soon. I'll start off with like notes and stuff.
So these are the notes on the marimba. As you can see, our bottom notes are our natural notes, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, and after that they basically just start over again with C. I started with C because middle C is basically our foundation note, and we build a lot off of that because when you go up from there, that's all treble clef, which is what we'll be talking about today, but when you go below there, that's when we get into bass clef. As our normal alphabet starts with A and goes to Z, the musical alphabet ends at G. So before I get back to playing this, I'll talk real quick about how these notes align with sheet music and how we read that, because I will be putting out pictures of the exercises that I'm recommending to practice. So real quick, the lines starting from that bottom line are read up E, G, B, D, F, and the trick I use to remember that is Elephants Go Belly Dancing Fridays, and the spaces starting from the bottom space is just face, F-A-C-E. They basically go up in alphabetical order, so like if you start at the bottom line, the next space is F and the next line is G, and it just goes up in alphabetical order. And this applies to beyond the staff, so like if we have lower lines, those are called ledger lines, and they continue to read in alphabetical order all the way down into, after that middle C, we go into bass clef. Another thing to note is that what all these photos have in common are that there are no flats or sharps in the key signature. They're all in C major or A minor, which are these keys here, C, D, E, F, G, A, B. And those can translate into the C major scale like so. The key signature can easily change by how many sharps or flats we add though, which on a mallet instrument are those top keys, or the black keys on a piano. Sharps just raise a note half a step and flats lower it half a step. So C sharp is equivalent to D flat because that's just C raised half a step and D lowered half a step. And E sharp is just F natural. I'll go over real quick how the addition of sharps and flats can impact our scale physically and in writing. I will speak only in major scales. So, quick example, if we added 2 flats, we would be in the key of B flat. And a trick to knowing this is that you jump to the second to last flat. If there's only 1 flat, it will always be an F major. So there are rules to know which sharps you can put down on what lines and in what order, same for flats. And it is told by the circle of fourths and fifths, or the rule for flats and the rule for sharps. And it basically says for flats that the first one we can put down is B, and then it shows the order that you can put them down in. And if we put down 3, the key would be in E flat because that's the second to last one, and the order would be B flat, E flat, and A flat. If we put down 5, it would be in D flat, and the order would be B, E, A, D, G. For sharps, if there's 1 sharp, it will always be G major, and the sharp will be F because that is our first sharp. And if we put down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, our key will be B major because you can tell the key by what letter is the next whole step up, which is why if we had 5 sharps, F, C, G, D, A, the next alphabetical letter / whole step would be B.
So basically the reason I started with all that and went over the circle of fourths and fifths and stuff is to show the diversity of the circles. Like they work in written music, but also we use them when we practice.
So oftentimes when we play scales, we usually start on C major, and the trick that I use to remember C is that it's the note right before the 2 notes up here. Because if you notice, they come in groups of 2s and 3s, like there's 3, there's 2, there's 3. But C will always be the one right before and right under the first group of 2. And then to its opposite is E. C and E are on the outside of C sharp and E flat. A trick to knowing how to actually play each scale if you're unfamiliar with the layout of a mallet instrument is that while you're playing, which this includes the first note, when you hit the note you can think whole step, whole step, whole step, half step, whole step, whole step, whole step, half step. and that works for each one. Like if we want to do F major, it would be whole step, whole step, whole step, half step, whole step, whole step, whole step, half step. Or if we wanted to do D flat major, it'd be whole step, whole step, whole step, half step, whole step. And this is because of our notes again. Like how C to D is a whole step, but C to C sharp is a half step. And all of these keys to each other are whole steps, except for E and F, since there's nothing there. They are a half step. And B and C, since there's nothing here, they are also a half step. But then the rest are whole steps. Like these are also a whole step to each other, F sharp and G sharp, but F sharp and G are half steps to each other. So when we play in the order of the circle, we start with C major scale because it has no sharps and no flats, and depending on what circle we do, we add them based on the number of sharps and flats. Like we'll start with C, but if we're doing the circle of fourths, then we would do F next because it only has one flat, which is B flat. But if we were doing the circle of fifths, we would do C, and then we would do G major because it has only one sharp, which is F sharp. A trick for getting from scale to scale would be, like, let's say we're doing the circle of fourths, and we start with our first scale, C. The fourth note of C major is F, and the F major scale would be our next scale because it only has one flat. So it's always the fourth note is the beginning of the next scale. So then when we play F, the fourth note is B flat, so that would be our next scale in the circle of fourths, which works because it has two flats. So we keep going up by flats, but also a way to remember when you're playing is the fourth note of the last scale will be the next scale. Same with the circle of fifths, except it's the fifth note. So we start with our C major, and then we want to play the scale that has only one sharp, which would be G. And G is 5 notes away from C. And then 5 notes away from G is D. So D major would be our next scale, and that works because it has 2 sharps. So a good thing to practice would be running through all the scales in the circle of fourths and fifths, whichever order, and doing them at different tempos, different heights, different volumes, crescendoing, decrescendoing, all that good stuff. We have different exercises to go with the scales, so if you don't just want to play the scale like straight up, we have different things. Like there's an exercise where your left hand starts by just hitting C, and you go up like this. Then down. So while your left hand is hitting C, your right hand is slowly climbing up the C scale, and then when you get to the top, your right hand hits C, and your left hand climbs down again. And then the next part is we alternate. So you hit C, and then D, and then C, and then you go up. While your left hand stays on C, your right hand and your left hand alternate notes. And same when you go back down. Together, the exercise would go. And then you can just do that for each scale. You can go up to F next if you're doing circle of fourths, and that's the next scale, so it only has one flat, which would be B. We also have an exercise called green scales. So how you play green scales are you start on the scale. I will start on C major, and then I'll probably just I like to do the circle of fourths, so C, F, E flat, that order. And honestly, C major is probably the hardest scale to do this in. I would say the easiest one is E flat. So that's a good scale to practice on to help your wrist movement and to like get faster. So how you play green scales are you start by the first note of the scale, you play a measure of eighth notes, and then you just start going up to the fifth. So, and then back down. You do that twice. And then you go up the whole scale. And then back down the fifth. And then up, and then down, and then up, and then all the way down. And then you play the whole scale. And then you can do that on any scale, like E flat. And that's a good way to practice scales. And then a good 4 mallet exercise that I personally really like is 5th third. And so how you play that basically is you start with your intervals of a fifth from C to G, and this one is really just like, it doesn't travel scales or anything, but if you wanted to play it in different keys, then knock yourself out. But typically we play it C to G, and this is how you play it. So once you do that 8 times, then you do C and E 8 times, and then again C and G, and then C and E, and then you do E and A, and then C and E, and then C and A, high A, and then C and F, C and A, C and F, and then F and A. Sorry. My final reminders are to play with your wrist, keep your heights even. When you pick a height, stay at that height. Don't like drop down or go up. Maintain heights. Move steadily, not like turn like this, but like sway like this. When you play 4 mallets, make sure your thumb is on top and you're using your wrist, and you're not like seesawing. You can hit with like each individual mallet, and when you're hitting with one, the other one doesn't move. And this one has a nice direct hit. Make sure you're hitting right in the center, or that little pipe guy is down there, and not on the outsides, but right in the middle. That's the sweet spot.
There are a lot more exercises that we do together, and hopefully we will be able to do them together soon. And yeah, that's all. I hope this was helpful, and I hope to see you guys soon.